a webinar format, and we do that because the regular meeting formats cap out at a certain number of people, and when we invite the whole district, we're never sure how many will attend. So the webinar allows us a capacity of 1,000, I think. So this allows us to not worry about that. What it prohibits us from doing is seeing all of you unless we promote you to the panel of people you see, which we can do later on in the evening if you have questions. The other thing that we would like to do is have questions, and I'd suggest waiting. We have a couple of slide decks to go through first. If you have questions, the Q&A, which is on the bottom middle right of your screen, is available for you to type questions in. I would, like I said, suggest you might wait till we're through the slide decks, because we had a good number of questions come in since the invitation originally went out. They went to the school committee and to me, and we've tried to really embed those questions into what we're going to share tonight and use that as definitely some informative content that we were sure to include. I am going to have everybody introduce themselves here in a moment, and then we will get started with the evening. The purpose of tonight is to give you as much information as we can about starting a new school year. Much to everyone's disappointment, I think, in a COVID mode. I think we all thought June and July was indicative of COVID being behind us, and August changed that. And so we want to be sure we're answering questions to the best of our ability. Knowing, I think, disclaimer at the beginning of all this, whatever we offer tonight is the moment in time to open school. And there is a commitment and intent, just like all of COVID, to revisit protocols and be sure that we're responding to what's actually going on, whether that's, being safer or being able to loosen up and, move away from some of the protocols. So we're trying to find that middle balance as we get the kids back into school with a changing environment. So if I could just have everybody who's on the screen here introduce themselves, and I'll cue you since you won't be able to know who's in what order thanks to the Zoom grid. And then we'll get started. Trisha, do you mind starting?
I'm Trisha McGeehan. I'm the public health nurse for the town of Concord.
Thank you. Kristen?
Hi, everybody. I'm Kristen Herbert, the Assistant Superintendent for Teaching and Learning.
Thank you. Susan?
Hi, everyone. I'm Susan Rask. I'm Concord's Public Health Director. And Trisha and I have been working closely with Laurie, Dr. Hunter, and Lisa Koski as we plan for school reopening.
Thanks. Angel?
Good evening, everyone. I'm Angel Charles, the principal of the Royal Elementary School.
Justin?
Good evening, everybody. I'm the principal. My name is Justin Cameron. I'm the principal at Concord Middle School.
Mike?
Hi, Mike Mastula, principal of Concord High School, and I have 2 of my own dogs and house sitting 2 dogs and no adult to watch any of them. So wish me luck.
Okay. You can mute for a while. Jared?
Hi, everybody. I don't know how I can follow that. Jared Stanton, Assistant Superintendent of Finance and Operations.
Thanks. Matt?
Good evening, everyone. I'm Matt Lucy, and I'm the principal of Willard Elementary School.
Thank you. Lisa?
Hi, I'm Lisa Koski. Even though it says Trisha McGeehan, Trisha, there's 2 of you tonight. I didn't get the link, so I used hers, and I can't figure out how to change it, so I'm having technical difficulties. I am the lead nurse for pre-K to 12, or the launch program for nursing.
Thank you. Sarah?
Hi, Sarah Wilson. I'm the chair of the Concord Carlisle Regional School Committee.
Thank you. And Cynthia?
Cynthia Rady, chair of the Concord School Committee.
Great. And Naomi Krakow, Alcott principal, will be here. She's delayed coming out of an appointment in Boston. So this is the team. This is your leadership team of both administrators, school committee, and health officials. And we're here tonight to try to give you an overview of the work that's gone on to get to the protocols that we are outlining, and to also try to give you as much background and rationale for those protocols, and then plans going forward as best as we can. So Susan, I'm going to have you kick it off, and I'll pull your slides up since I have them. One moment. You can see those, I assume.
Yep, I'm good. Here we go.
Great.
Okay, you can go to the next slide. I'm not used to being not able to move my own slides. So I thought you all really, everyone is probably the most interested in the COVID cases that we've been seeing this summer. And I'm going to kick off by saying in May, we had 12 cases total in Concord. In June, we had 1. And since July, we've had, until yesterday, we've had 73 cases. So the case numbers have gone up consistently, really from about the middle of July on. Tricia is the public health nurse for Concord, Carlisle, and Lincoln. So she put the numbers together for all of the towns. You can see we've had 21 cases in the under age 12 group, which are the unvaccinated kids. And then perhaps, which, that doesn't make us happy, obviously. But sort of more concern is the number of fully vaccinated cases we've had, particularly in the age 12 to 20 group. We've had 9 total cases with 4 fully vaccinated. In the 21 to 30, we've had 11 people positive with 5 fully vaccinated. So we're and it goes through for every age group. So that is of concern to us as we think about opening school, and we think it's largely due to the Delta variant, which I'll talk about in another couple of slides. Anything you want to add to that, Trish?
No, I guess what I want to tell people, and we'll probably talk about this later, is the symptoms of these people that I am talking to. Some of these cases have no symptoms. I'm seeing, I think what I'm seeing most is head and nose symptoms, headaches, nasal congestion, runny nose, fatigue. I'm not seeing loss of taste or smell. I haven't had one person tell me they've lost their taste or smell. A couple fevers. I get a lot of people saying I didn't have a fever or a cough. I just thought a runny nose. I didn't think it was COVID. So just last year was very cough and fever heavy. Right now it is this, this nasal congestion. So it's going to get confusing. What is allergies? What is COVID? But when in doubt, we're going to be testing kids. So.
Right. And when the school nurses tell you to please do the symptom checker and be alert for symptoms, please don't ignore mild symptoms, because that's what Trish is seeing. I think it's important for everybody to know that.
Yes.
So you can go to the next slide, Lori. The good news is that we're really highly vaccinated. And you're going to see the numbers don't quite match up, but it's clear that we have a really high vaccination rate in the 12 to 15-year-olds and the 16 to 19-year-olds. It's actually showing more people vaccinated than the population. I think that's due to duplication of records in the state MIIS, and we just haven't had a chance to deduplicate them yet. But the good news is many of the kids and much of the town is highly vaccinated, which is great news. That's the best thing we can all be doing, is getting vaccinated. It's pretty clear that even the people that get the breakthrough positive cases, people who are fully vaccinated are almost always getting much less sick. And that's my push for vaccination. Next slide. So of concern, I think everybody's heard about the Delta variant at this point. CDC at the end of July, as this became an emerging issue, basically is letting us know Delta spreads more than twice as easily from one person to another compared to the strains we saw last winter and spring. And that's because individuals infected with Delta tend to have more virus in their respiratory tracts than the other variants, and they may carry the virus for a longer period of time. And those two factors contribute to the increased transmissibility seen with Delta. Delta has become the predominant variant all over the country, and it definitely is a predominant variant in Massachusetts right now. And as we just said, Delta's causing some breakthrough cases in vaccinated individuals. Next slide. So how infectious is it? They're saying it's about as infectious as chickenpox, which is a very infectious disease. So it's more infectious than flu. It's more infectious than the original variants on the coronavirus. It's more infectious than smallpox was. So it's a very infectious variant. And we need to take that seriously. Next slide. And this is what CDC says, you know, the original variant, one person might infect 2, and now one person's infecting, you know, 4 or 5 people. So it's twice as infectious as the previous variants, you know, which is of concern as we bring people back together in indoor spaces. Okay. So what do we know about its effect on kids? Most children who get COVID have less symptoms than adults, but it's Delta's more transmissible. So therefore, it's really important to put extra layers of protection against exposure. And we also, of course, have kids under 12 who are not yet vaccinated. We do know from national studies that kids do experience COVID infection. You know, for a long time, last year, we thought, oh, maybe kids just don't get this, but in fact, they do. And so CDC is really recommending people who are unvaccinated be masked in public indoor settings. And that's the guidance they came out with at the end of July, which did not match up with what the State Department of Public Health or DESE was saying. But things have evolved since that point. Next slide. So CDC says, as we think about prevention, there are various things we should be looking at. You know, to think about how many layers of protection we should be putting in, the level of community transmission of the disease, our health system capacity. The good news is that the Massachusetts health system capacity is in pretty good shape. Hospitalizations are up, but they're not stretching capacity. The vaccination coverage, Concord is fortunate that we have a high number of vaccinated, a high percentage. Capacity for early detection. And the schools will be doing pooled testing this year for surveillance, which is great because that's going to kind of let us see, that helps us understand what the trends might be. And then how much of a population at increased risk you have for severe outcomes, which is not generally the school population, although Concord does have older citizens. So that's sort of how CDC wants us to think about it. Next slide. So back at the end of July, CDC came out with this guidance that anyone living in areas of substantial and high community transmission of the disease, CDC recommended that everyone, including fully vaccinated individuals and those with someone in their household who is unvaccinated, should wear a mask in public indoor settings to help prevent the spread of Delta and protect others. And that guidance was not followed by the state of Massachusetts. They said, no, if you're vaccinated, you don't have to worry, you can go about your business. You don't have to be masked indoors, but this is what the CDC has told us. So you can go ahead and next slide, Lori. So here's where Massachusetts is. Middlesex County is at high risk. We have 102 cases per 100,000 population, and the county positivity rate is 2%. You might remember from last year that we said once it gets over 3%, that gets concerning. The positivity rate is the percentage of all people who are tested for COVID who come up positive. And almost every county in Massachusetts is either at high or substantial risk at this point. So as is most of the country, because the Delta variant's just sweeping the country. So that gets us to the decision to require masks in schools. So back at the end of July, CDC recommended universal indoor masking for all teachers, staff, students, and visitors to K-12 schools, regardless of vaccination status. And the state held off on supporting that. But just today, you may have seen in the news that DESE likely will make it official tomorrow that all students, teachers, and staff will be required to wear masks indoors regardless of vaccination status. That's going to last until at least October 1st. After October 1st, schools can reevaluate, but they want to build in the reevaluation has to look at the percentage of vaccinated people in each school. And when 80% of each school is vaccinated, depending on how things are going, maybe the mask mandate can be lifted. So it looks like DESE is going to mandate masks in school for everyone at every school until October 1st.
Yeah, the commissioner's been very clear with the superintendents. Now that he has authority, that's what he's going to do.
And I personally think that's great. I mean, let's get everybody back in school safely and see how it goes. I don't think it hurts any of us to wear masks for a month. The kids are used to it. We want the kids in school. We want them safe, and we want to get the school year off to a good start. So I'm very supportive of this. I think it's the right thing to do. Next slide. And my concluding remarks are that behavior still matters. So I'm going to give you the brief story of the Provincetown COVID cluster that started July 4th weekend. As of today, it's more than 1,000 cases in the cluster. They looked at 469 of those cases that were Massachusetts residents. Of those, 74% of the cases occurred in fully vaccinated persons, and Delta was found in 89% of the samples. And when you ask why the cluster, I think it comes down to behavior and choices about what we do. It was a resort town packed with visitors for a holiday weekend. It happened to be a rainy weekend, so people weren't out on the beach. There were many crowded indoor gatherings in bars, restaurants, and private homes. And we know this is a respiratory virus. And we know that when we crowd together indoors, the virus is going to circulate. And so that just comes down to my next set of comments on the next slide, which is, you know, we all got vaccinated. We all think we thought we got our get out of jail free card. We all want life to be back to normal. I know I certainly do. But the Delta variant's at least twice as transmissible as what we saw last winter and spring. We're seeing the breakthrough infections in vaccinated individuals, and our kids under 12 are still unvaccinated. So really everyone should be thoughtful and careful about what we do and about attending crowded indoor gatherings. And, you know, just like last year, I'd say socialize outdoors as much as possible for as long as possible, and consider keeping your kids in small pods of friends with families that are vaccinated and who you trust about being careful. All of us would just like life to be normal, but I just think if we want to keep the schools open and not have kids quarantined and have kids back in school, which we all know needs to happen, we all just have to like hang with what we're doing and be careful and be respectful of this virus. It isn't over yet. So that's what I have to say.
Great, thank you, Susan. I'm gonna now move us over to the protocols we've developed, which were shared out both in a document that I pushed out to everyone and have been followed up with some more specific information from the building principals. So we'll go through this, and then I think we're going to be ready for questions and answers. So let me just go through. There are updates in here, a couple of probably very key points for some. Certainly some things that answer some of the questions that have come in. So let me just screen share again. And get to the slides. So, and I'm going to just piggyback on Susan's comments about the face masks. And in a minute, I'm going to give it to the school committee chairs. We had decided August 17th that we were going to mask everyone in the school buildings to open. As Susan said, the commissioner was granted authority from the Board of Education today to mandate that through October 1st. He met with the superintendents Friday and told us that if he was given that authority, indeed, he would act on it. So I think, Sarah, you just wanted to comment on what our follow-up will be, given that that's a certain specific timeline.
That's a specific timeline. It'll be here before we know it. And I think we want to be prepared to dial up, dial down, where we need to go throughout the year. And so at our next school committee meeting on the 31st, we will be looking at our mask policy and revisions that will need to be in place for October 1st. If we hit the 80% and whatever other metrics we decide we need to hit. To that point, though, while we see that the majority, that a high number of our kids are vaccinated, we don't actually have that proof in the schools, is my understanding at this point. So it's very helpful for parents to send in the vaccine cards electronically through the email address that's been posted in a few messages that have gone out, because once we have the data, I mean, we're going to learn a lot over this next month. And one of the things that we do really need to know is what percentage of our students are in fact vaccinated.
Right. So thank you. I'll give you that data in a minute on the next slide as to what we actually have on record. We know the community data is really high. We now need our documents to align with that. So
Lori, can I just, this is Cynthia Rainey.
Sure.
I just think that we will have a discussion. And as we know, everything is developing, everything is changing. We get new information every day from the CDC and various authorities. So as much as they put this October 1st, 80% thing, there's a lot of other factors we need to consider to keep our teachers safe, our staff safe, our younger children safe. So I think we need to be careful with jumping to that conclusion. I'll just put that out there.
Yeah, I think that's well said. And we're going to continue to follow the patterns which we've had for over a year now, which is taking in all the data and, especially our local data and our school-based data, which obviously until we open, we don't have. And once we get everybody in, we'll be able to really assess what we're seeing happen within the schools. So, but the conversation will start on the 31st, as Sarah said.
Thank you.
Physical distancing, we're referencing a 3 foot. We're trying to be conscious of distance and, have reviewed CDC guidance, said 3 feet, DPH and DESI said no distance requirements. So we're going to manage normally in terms of big picture structures, but when kids are within classrooms, we're going to really look at the 3 feet as a guidepost, just because we believe, at least to start, we think that's just a really safe approach. Hand washing will go on, assigned seating, so we have ways to contact trace as needed. We are going to continue inside to cohort the K-5 kids when they're outside, because the current guidance doesn't have us contact tracing. We're going to allow the kids to mix among classrooms when they're at recess. And we know that was a question a number of you had. The symptom screener is coming back. There is an availability to do it on your cell phone. We've actually got a video that we made a year ago that I'll push back out again to make sure you've got it as easily accessible to you as possible. The goal there is, one, you do that little self-assessment to, really decide if there are symptoms that need to be attended to. And two, it's a really important communication tool for us. We found it really valuable. So we know it's not the most convenient piece of thing to do every morning, but it really did make a difference. Lunch will be outside as much as possible. We've got tents coming in this week at all of the schools. Through the good weather, we expect to be primarily outside, and we'll be reviewing all of our protocols every 2 weeks. The school committee will have a standing agenda item because we want to be fluid as we can and know that we can adjust one way or the other. A lot of questions have come up about our vaccination rates. Like we've said, the community data is very high. We really need your help to continue to send us documentation. Today we had 73% of grades 7 and 8, which was fresh a few minutes ago. High school, we're about halfway there. So please continue to submit those to the health office emails that we provided, and we continue to provide. Probably one of the biggest things that's happened over the last couple of days, both the Concord Teachers Association and Concord Carlisle Teachers Association have collaboratively agreed that all teachers will be vaccinated by October 17th. many of them are already. We've collectively come to believe that that's just really important for everyone. And so without a mandate, they've come to the table and said they will go ahead and do that. So I know that's been another big question we've had. Teachers will be vaccinated. We're having the same discussion with our 6 other union presidents and making great progress there. And then the last group will be the non-union folks that I oversee. Quarantine, we're going to stay at a high level here tonight unless you have questions. Vaccinated students do not have to quarantine. I think that's just a really big takeaway. That's per protocol, commonly through DPH. Vaccinated adults, kids do not have to quarantine unless they become symptomatic. So that'll be important. We are likely going to recommend you do some testing just because we're seeing these asymptomatic cases come through, but that'll be a recommendation, not a mandate or a piece we will hold you accountable for. We are moving to the 7-day quarantine for close contacts. You'll remember last year we started at 14, we went to 10. We're going to go to the 7-day. Part of that is the Delta variant seems to exhibit itself a little sooner. So we're comfortable doing that. And we had a lot of success with the other 10-day and believe that symptoms do appear within the 7. If you are positive, nothing has changed. Through the course of COVID, it's a 10-day isolation, and that will remain consistent. We're going to start the year quarantining the entire elementary classrooms. We're going to look at that as the year gets going, and if we get comfortable, we may be able to reduce that so the whole class doesn't have to go out. If the entire class is quarantined, remote instruction will be provided for everyone. If we have singleton quarantines, this year we are moving to an asynchronous work process rather than the live Zooming at the older grades. We need to get our teachers focused on live instruction and not trying to do hybrid. But we are also going to really work to look at how we're providing education to the kids that are in quarantine and prioritize concepts, access through Google Classroom, and make sure they can stay caught up without big backlogs of work accumulating on them. So watch for more to come on that from the principals. We are participating in the asymptomatic pool testing that the state is funding. Lisa's been working on getting that up and running for next week. We are developing some visuals for you, so quarantine and such is a little easier to follow. We are also creating a site list of testing options should you need to be tested. That it's handy, things keep changing. The state is not providing free sites anymore. We want to be sure it's clear where and how you can get that accomplished. And travel, this is probably another one of our most significant changes. The guidance from all of the agencies is very different in terms of travel than it was. So there are no specific recommendations. That said, if you are not vaccinated, you really do need to follow the guidelines DPH has put out, and there are quarantine protocols. If you are traveling to certain spots, there may be specific, especially international processes to follow. But we are not going to be tracking travel and asking for testing the way we were last year. So that is a big change. I'm not going to go through all the cleaning protocols. These are all the same as last year. We are going to be just as committed to these as we have been, and those will continue as is. We are modifying and opening the schools up to some extent. We are allowing indoor space for small group use after hours. We had restricted all community access to the schools last year. We're comfortable in after hour use. Parents are going to be allowed inside for purposes like going to the nurse, to the main office, and staying within those more common areas. We will not be having parent volunteers in classrooms, at least at this point in the year. We'll keep reflecting and seeing if there's ways we can change that, but right now the answer would be no. Parent meetings, IEP meetings, and parent conferences will all be held virtually, as will the large group events like back to school nights and such. It's not seeming smart to bring large numbers of people indoors in the way those traditionally happen. Extracurriculars and athletics, we are going to run these as normally as we would. There are no outdoor restrictions, so we're excited for our athletes that can all get out and play as normal, which was very much like the spring. The only remaining question at the high school anyway, volleyball and cheer are both inside. We just want to line up with the DCL league, so we're waiting for the decision on masks during play inside, and we will follow suit. We are going to sing and bring the instruments back. The performing arts have had a big impact due to COVID. We're going to do it cautiously though, with masks and 3 feet between kids. And just in general, we're trying to keep group sizes not to more than 50 in one place or so. Cafeterias being the exception, which is why the outdoor space is so important, so we can spread kids out as much as possible. And that's the overview of where we are. So I see a good amount of questions have come in through the Q&A, and we're happy to make our way through those. If anyone wants to be on camera or to be heard through the audio, we can promote you to panelist. Just raise your hand with the virtual raise hand function that's at the bottom part of your screen, and we'll move you over. So if it's okay, I'll go through questions and throw them to whoever's appropriate to answer. Everybody good with that? All right. Will there be a required vaccine now that it's been approved? Trisha or Susan, do you want to weigh in on any mandates for student vaccines? Anything you're hearing or lack of?
I haven't heard anything yet.
Me neither.
Yeah, no, I haven't either. So I don't know that the Massachusetts is headed that way. We are not currently talking about it locally. Any positive cases seriously ill or hospitalized, Trisha?
In Concord, I can't say that I am aware of any hospitalized cases. I have had a hospitalization in another town. I have had several people that were quite ill, but not hospitalized. Some people had no symptoms. It just really runs the gamut.
Great. Let's see here. These don't stay static, so I have to keep scrolling so I can see them. Do you know the cycle threshold the COVID tests are being run at? I don't know if any of you are, Trisha or Susan, are you in the details of how the tests are processed? So we can find that out maybe.
I think the Broad is still turning them around in 48 hours, and there's always the AFC urgent care in Bedford where it's a molecular test and you get the results the same day. So that's an important, that's a great resource.
Anything else on, there's another question here on the PCR test distinguishing between Delta and the other variants.
Yeah, so right now they're not sequencing a lot of the lab tests because they just know that it's mostly Delta, and Alpha is that original variant is really not even around. So
okay.
Every once in a while I'll click on it and it will say Delta variant, but most of my lab tests they're not sequencing.
Question of the 31 cases of kids under 21 were vaccinated. What's the percentage of the school population? That's obviously very small percentage wise with 3,300 kids. So very small, under 1%, I would gather. We talked on hospitalizations. If kids have mild symptoms, why push vaccines? Does anyone, do either of you want to speak on why vaccines are viewed to be so important, even in kids with mild symptoms typically?
Susan?
Well, I think many kids who get COVID do have mild symptoms, but there's no guarantee.
Right.
I mean, there are some kids that are getting quite sick. And that, if to me, is the best reason that everyone should get vaccinated, because no one knows what would happen, and we don't want kids to get sick. If there's anything we can do to make them not get sick at all or ensure that they get mild disease, I think vaccination is the best way to get there.
And people have to remember that vaccines are not 100%. They are intended to prevent serious illness, death, and hospitalization. So, you know, by getting vaccinated, you're going to reduce that risk of landing in the hospital and being really sick.
Yeah. I'm starting to hear long hauler kind of feedback from parents too. So,
Yeah.
how do we do pool testing? Lisa, that's you. How do we participate? Hope you're on mute. Lisa, you're on mute.
There we go.
There we go.
I'm in the process of working with CIC Health right now, which is the vendor that the state has gone with, which we were working with last year. And we're going to be getting a link that Lori or Dr. Hunter will send out by the end of the week. It's a little bit different this time. Parents will be consenting through a state form that they've created, so it won't be a district-made consent. And then each building, the nurses will let you know what day or days they're going to be testing in your child's building. And we're excited. CIC is telling us they're using Broad Institute for the results, and they're saying that they should be coming back in 12 to 14 hours. So we should know by, you know, the next morning anyway, or maybe even late that night, if the results get picked up by the end of the school day.
Great, thank you. Busing information, protocols and schedules. There's some protocol information in the document I sent out. Jared, do you know when we're gonna have bus schedules out?
I believe we are posting them as we speak. A bunch got posted today, so they are out there. I believe so, and I'll triple check that.
Great. 3 feet, realistically enough space. Susan or Lisa, we just spent half an hour debating some of this. Do you want to weigh in on? We're trying to find that balance here. So do you want to weigh in on that with either referencing the guidance that's out there?
So I will say that DESE has said that 3 feet is sufficient. I think we all know 6 feet would be nicer, but I also think there's just the practical reality of we can't bring all kids back to school full time at 6 feet distance. It isn't doable. So DESE has said they believe 3 feet is safe, and I hope that it is. And I think that's another reason to keep everybody in masks. And I hope it goes well. We'll find out
Certainly in the
soon.
spring, we know it was. It's the Delta piece we're not,
Right,
just don't have that experience yet.
right. We're in new territory here.
Right. Let's see, assigned seats on the bus. You don't, the question is if you need to ride the bus the first day to get an assigned seat. Jared, how are we handling assigned seats on the bus?
We are still working that right now, but it's going to be basically the seat you sit on that first day is going to be your assigned seat for contract tracing purposes. But we will have more on that before the end of the week.
Thank you.
And routes.
There's nothing the kids or families have to do. That'll all be managed by transportation.
And then the second round of routes have been posted today, so they are up.
Oh, hot off the press. There's a question on criteria to remove the mask mandate, and that'll be discussed August 31st. It won't be removed on the 31st because the state has just implemented a mandate until October 1st. So do you want to add to that, Sarah?
No, I just wanted to say that you know, what we know of last year is that the masks were effective in the school. We're in uncharted territory, as has been said, and the guidance from the state keeps changing, and so we don't know exactly what we're going to use as criteria at this point. This is all going to be conversation. We just want to be prepared to move in any direction that we need to be able to move.
Great. Some question on benefit of mask mandates and the combination of vaccine, especially with such high rates. I think for us, it's been a goal of keeping school open all along as the primary social emotional need of kids while we keep them physically safe. So that's been the balance. I don't know if Susan or Trish, you want to weigh in on that beyond that general statement, but I know that's been my advantage, is trying to find that trade-off where kids are where they should be in school, but safe.
I think the takeaway is this is how we're going to start the school year, and everyone is used to things changing on the fly, and we just have to go with it depending on cases. And if we're seeing in school transmission, for now, we are going to be as safe as we can be, get these kids in, get everyone masked, and adjust our sales accordingly. I hope people understand that things will change. Things changed a lot last year, and we all did great. We're not done with COVID, but we know how to do it. So we have to just keep going. We can do it. We've got a great team.
So Jennifer, we see your hand up there. Jared's going to promote. You could just give him a minute. Percentage of the K-5 day outside is one of the elementary principals want to weigh in on our plan there. Angel, do you mind grabbing that?
Hi, not at all. So, well, we're kind of in a unique situation at Thoreau this year with the fire. So our students are going to be spending quite a bit of time outside. But what we did last year was we had signups where teachers could sign up for a designated outdoor space where they could bring their students out for a snack and mask break. And we're going to continue to utilize that system this year. I would say students by and large were outside far more this year than they were in previous years. And we're looking to continue that.
And there's another elementary, if the weather's not good enough for outdoor lunch, what's the plan? Do you want to add to that or have one of your colleagues?
Well, at Thoreau, our cafeteria is currently being used as a classroom, a temporary classroom. So students will be eating in their homerooms. And I believe that's the same across the other two elementary schools.
That's correct. So we, as we did last year, we're going to get out as much as possible. So we always are stressing to parents, make sure your children are packed with rain gear and a change of socks, because we're getting outside. We found it very important for students to get out for a mask break. But we're also taking advantage of doing reading groups outside or some of our science observations outside. And then we do have 4 tents now. So the tents will be used for lunch every day, as well as for areas for study outside. And similar to Thoreau and Alcott, we'll be outside more often than we have in the past. And it's been one of the silver linings of this more unique times.
Great, thanks. Jennifer, why don't I call on you? I think you can speak or turn your camera on or both.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, okay. Thank you so much for having this gathering and for inviting me to speak. Just briefly, I would just like to put things into context a little bit. And as we're forming these policies and restrictive mandates, we need to keep a perspective that 355, maybe give or take, students or children under the age of 17 have died of COVID since the beginning of the pandemic. So 500 per year before the pandemic have died of the flu. So when we take these measures, and I really appreciate everybody thinking of the kids and trying to keep them and their families and our community safe, I think there's nothing more important than that. And we need to keep things in perspective so that we're not creating more problems down the future, that our current policies will continue to have effects for years. People are projecting years. Experts are projecting that what we're going to be dealing with psychological impacts, with suicides, depression, language therapy. There's so much research that's coming out already in the short amount of time that our current policies that each of us personally are making from our best intentions will have definitely lasting effects. For example, currently, I just heard yesterday or today not just heard, but you can look this up and verify it, that current babies being born in to this pandemic environment for pregnant women, their IQ has been lowered by over 20%. There's so many things that we just simply don't understand how we're going to impact. And it's very wonderful when people in our community, with the education that we have, it's a very educated society, are trying to do the best we can. But unless we pull in some real experts like psychologists, doctors in psychiatric care, and across the board from different viewpoints, I think we're kind of playing with fire here. So I'm just asking to put some things into perspective, maybe have a group and town-wide discussion about this, where we can bring in different experts and opinions and hash out some of the finer points. For example, between 3 feet and 6 feet, there was never any scientific evidence that showed 6 feet was effective at stopping the spread of COVID. So 3 feet, while I like allowing, really realistically, you guys are all in the school district, I've had kids, we're adults, when we go into the coffee break room, I mean, 3 feet, it's not going to start. This is an aerosol spread. This isn't 3 feet, 6 feet. It doesn't matter. So these policies, they have to be based in science, and they have definitely ramifications that I don't think I hear being discussed, and I'm sure has been thought out individually by each of us, but as a group, we kind of put on our safe hats and we try to do the best we can. So I'll leave it at that, but please, I beg you, I implore you to please, let's bring in some really experts in this field and open up the discussion so that honestly, so that the repercussions don't fall on your shoulders. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see here. We have some vaccine questions. Lisa, if they submitted vaccine cards in the spring, do they need to do that again? No, we have it. If you haven't been vaccinated by the 30th, are we preventing people from coming to school? I'll just quickly say no, not at all. The teachers have agreed to the October 17th date. Many of them are already all set. They don't need that much time, but the reason that it is October 17th is in case they haven't been vaccinated, they can be fully vaccinated by the 17th. So I don't have the data right in front of me as to how many of them already are vaccinated, but it's by far the large majority, if not almost 100%. Will there be snow days this year? The superintendents have begged the state to allow us a remote option if we want it. The thumbnail we have sketched so far with the school committee is that we would have 2 traditional days, traditional snow days, Coco and snowmen. And after that, we could have the choice of going remote, which hopefully you saw the benefits of some of that in June when we were out pretty early. So more to come. The state right now is saying fully remote days will not count, period. And that right now is inclusive of snow days. So we're planning on 2, hoping we have some choices after that to contain the end of the school year. Testing, any discussion? I'm going to skim a little. I have 107 questions here, and I'm going to try to look for themes if everybody's okay with that. If we don't answer your exact questions, by all means, email whoever's appropriate on the panel, and we would be happy to interact. We don't have a plan for testing prior to the year starting. We have a plan for testing next week as people come in. Let's see here.
Lori, I promoted Mr. Johnson. If you want to take him, he's up.
All right, sure, go ahead. Go ahead, Carrie. Oh, you're on mute, I'm sorry. Oh, you're on mute. Could you unmute?
Oh, there we go.
There we go.
All right, good evening. Just want to say a few things. This has been tough for all of us. I have 2 teenage boys. They've missed a lot. My son missed high school graduation last year. I don't have to tell what we've gone through, people on this panel that have children. As parents, we heard about this vaccine. It was unapproved. We spent sleepless nights, a lot of back and forth. Both my sons got COVID. You wonder what to do for your children. We say, we're going to take the risk and we're going to give our sons an unapproved vaccine for the better of everybody and for them. It seems like 95% of Concord parents made that decision, that difficult decision, to have our kids take a vaccine that was not approved and not developed in times 10 years or whatever these vaccines take to approve. So we made that difficult decision. And I think we had a lot of stress and sleepless nights after that decision. And we'll have a lot of stress about, did we do the right thing? But 95% of the parents of high school children made that decision. And I think you should allow us to make the decision on whether our children should wear masks. That you're not in the position to make this decision, that we are. I feel very strongly about this. Maybe you take a vote, but 95% of the parents in this town decided we are going to take the risk and take the vaccine. You should allow us to make the decision and not yourselves. The masks, if you look at the masks, it says right on the mask, these are not effective at preventing any illness or disease or anything. They are effective at muting people's facial expressions, how they interact with other human beings, oxygen levels, their skin. We know it affects that. The chemicals being used to spray, the CDC has already said this does not exist on surfaces. The chemicals we spray for these children, have they been tested? No, not at all. We took the role as parents. As the previous person said, unfortunately, children die of different things. They die of car accidents, flu. We're not going to prevent everyone from dying. But I think that and I think the committee should let the parents decide. We have already decided we want our children to take the vaccine. We made that decision on an unapproved vaccine with the feeling that we're going to go much more back to normal, which means no masks. I'll leave it at that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Let me just get to the next ones here. Pool testing for the younger students. Lisa, oh, I'm sorry.
I think he's muted again.
Okay. Lisa, could you answer about the younger kids? Do they self-swab?
So if they're under 8, the nurse will swab them, but over 8, they can self-swab.
Excuse me, can you answer the question why we can't decide as parents whether to wear the mask?
So the school committee's here, and I think you heard that they're going to be talking about the next steps after
I want
the
to talk about it
mandate.
now. I want to talk, I don't think you should, I think, first of all, we should have a public hearing, right? I would like this addressed right now and tell them, I don't know how many people are on this Zoom meeting, why we as parents that have vaccinated our children against an unapproved, we don't know the dangers of this vaccine, that why we can't decide what's best for our children. I want that addressed tonight. I think that's appropriate for the people that are on this Zoom meeting.
Sure. So the answer tonight is that the state is mandating the masks till October 1st.
That was today. I'm talking, yes, last week you guys made a decision. And then I know you're already hedging on October 1st. I could tell the tone of some of the people here.
We just
I would
don't
like to
know.
why we can't decide. You don't have to follow the rules. I just want to know why the parents couldn't decide. We got the vaccine for our children, why we couldn't make that decision. 95% of the parents in this town made that decision It's a serious decision. You would all agree, right? I think we'd all agree. We weren't sure what to do. But why
Indeed.
couldn't we make the decision on, as a group of parents, on what to do next?
I'm going to answer for myself, and I don't know if Tricia, Susan, or the school committee wants to weigh in. Since COVID started, we've frankly been forced into making decisions at a collective level, trying very hard to be honoring and appreciating that children are parents' first and foremost responsibility, and we do not want to overstep. And it's a precarious balance all through all of this. It weighs heavily on all of us. The guidance coming from conflicting organizations left us with local decisions to make, and we're making the one best we can with the goal of staying in school. And so, yes, it's a little more conservative, but that's with the goal of keeping school open. To me, that's been the primary goal all along, because kids not in school we know is harmful. We are committing to revisiting that often and regularly. If you had asked me in June and July, and some of these principals will attest to this, we were not masking. We were going in normal and really excited about it. The activity of the Delta variant and not knowing quite what it's going to look like in school has us wanting to just take it slower and more carefully, with hopefully the expectation we get out of masks. All I can say is none of us want them in masks for any longer than necessary. It was disappointing and frustrating for all of us. So I don't know if anybody wants to add to that. We hear you, and I'm glad you're speaking tonight. We do want to hear how people feel, and factor that in.
Hi, Dan Healy, another Concord parent. I have 3 young children, one of them, the oldest, going into 1st grade this year. Hey, Matt, nice to see you. I know Matt Lucy, my son, is over at Willard. He was actually remote most of last year because 2 of his 4 grandparents are severely immunocompromised, and we just, we wanted to play it safe as much as we wanted him in school. And we understand that kids really need to be in school. We want things to be as normal as possible. That said, and Carrie, to speak to why we don't need to go to every parent and ask what the right move is here, the Center for Disease Control knows this stuff better than I do. The American Academy of Pediatrics knows this stuff better than I do. Their guidance is not ambiguous. They said that going into the school year, everyone K through 12, students, staff, should be in masks. They didn't say, if you do X, Y, and Z, if you don't travel too far. They made very clear, and again, if you want to follow the science, if you want to talk to the experts, these are the experts. The Center for Disease Control specializes in exactly this. The Academy of Pediatrics, they specialize in this. So the experts have weighed in. They have said what we should do, and I'm going to bow out now because I don't think anything more needs to be said. I don't know that you need to waste more time hearing from parents who have their own theories that they think should have just as much weight as the theories, not even theories, the guidance put forth by the CDC. And frankly, the CDC might change what they think makes sense a week from now because they're continuing to test what they've learned. That's what scientists do. That's what doctors do if they're being responsible, and they are being responsible. We can see that because the guidance has evolved as they've learned more. So right now, we have unambiguous guidance from the experts. That's why the kids should be in masks. Thank you for your time.
I would.
So Susan, I'm gonna ask that, I think we've heard both sides of that discussion now, and we're appreciative of both sides. We have I have 132 questions in the Q&A right now. So I think we've heard both sides. We know both sides are out there, and it weighs on us heavily. We're going to try to get to the logistics and details that other people were here to hear. And there will certainly always be upcoming opportunities to send your feedback along and communicate with the school committee, with me, with the health officials, whomever you choose to. But I'd like to get back to the details. So I'm going to ask that the parents who are panelists go off camera, and we're going to put you back on as attendees. And I'm going to go to the Q&A, which is overflowing. Let's see, Friday night football games, Kick for Cancer. We're trying to hold on to all the outdoor activities. So far, those are all on track. Teachers encouraging people for pool testing. Yes, even vaccinated adults and kids. Let's see. HVAC, we are continuing with what we started last year. We had a complete survey of the systems last year. We did a lot of upgrading at the middle schools, particularly, and continue to monitor those. Please send us more questions if you have them. We are lockers. Mr. Cameron, would you like to make note of the lockers at the middle school and the plan there?
Yeah, well, it's rather quite simple. We are not moving forward with lockers. Even in June, when we believe this would all be lifted, we surveyed our students and our faculty and staff about what we wanted to take with us into the new school year. Things like a morning recess, more transition time between periods, eating outside, longer advisory, were all things we made a commitment to in June, actually. The only thing that was split, I want to be very honest, was with our students was lockers. The older students more trended towards wanting to carry backpacks, and the younger students trended a little bit more towards wanting their lockers back. But the short answer and simple answer is we're starting the year without lockers. We will revisit when it becomes jacket season.
Thank you. Mr. Lucy, could you just quickly tell us about mask breaks at the elementary schools?
Yep, happy to. Every day, all classrooms K through 5 will have a mask break in the morning. We'll be outside for lunch recess, where there'll be another opportunity for a mask break. And then we'll do science and social studies in all likelihood outside in the afternoon, which another opportunity to take mask breaks. So again, we're embracing the opportunity to be outside. As Mr. Cameron was saying, what do we want to bring forward? Getting kids outside is a benefit for learning, but also what kids have needed. And we learned this past year, that's a great balance of time in the classroom and outside.
Thank you. A quick question about the bus and the 3 feet. We can't maintain 3 feet with full capacity on the buses. Some may have lesser ridership and there'll be more room for that. So we're in an active discussion right now about how to manage the buses and be as safe as possible. The windows will be open. That's probably the key to the bus ride, and more information to come. Right now, the state is telling us we don't even have to contact trace. So we're weighing all the input from the different agencies. Athletes are mandated to test. We did that in the spring, and that prevented full team quarantines. And that's a big driver for us, is to minimize quarantine. Can high school kids fill out the symptom screener, or do we want parents to do it? We got stuck between choices. To put it on your cell phone, we have to go through the parent portal. The kids won't translate to that. So it's a parent sign in if you and your student want to navigate that so they can hit those buttons. We're going to leave that to you, but we wanted you to be able to do it on the phone. Siblings of close contacts can still go to school. Yes, we are not restricting siblings, and hopefully we will never be doing that this year. We are going to try to avoid that. No remote academy option this year. The state is not allowing it. So if you have more concerns, to reach out to the principals. Will the elementary kids have to sit with their class at lunch if they're outside? Ms. Krako, do you want to just weigh in on how we're going to manage lunch at elementary?
Yep, happy to. So the quickest answer to that is yes. Students will be seated together by classroom when they're outside, although they'll be in the close vicinity to the other kids in their grade level, but they will have the opportunity to see other students, which is a little different from last year during that recess block. And that's just so that we're prepared if we do have to go inside. Hopefully we're not going to have any rain this fall, but if we do and it's torrential, we just need the protocol in place so that we can move inside sort of at a short notice.
Great. Question about flu vaccine requirements. The state said we were going to require that, and then at the last minute said we didn't do it. We had already executed that. There'll be no flu vaccine requirements, strongly suggested as usual. A couple of questions if we could modify the COVID symptom screener to just be if you have symptoms only. We can certainly talk about that. The part of the point is that it stops you every morning to self-reflect about whether you have symptoms. So that's why we aren't doing that to start with. Any of the health professionals want to weigh in on the at-home testing that's starting to come out? Trisha, maybe you?
I had experience of one person who tested positive with a CVS at-home test, quarantined about 60 people in a summer camp program, only to test negative on a PCR test the next day. So that was one experience I have had. I'm sure some are better than others. That's my experience this summer. So I have a little post-traumatic stress over that. I think a lot of people are using them. The one thing that I don't like is the results come in very late into the DPH website. So I don't get the results till they're about, day 7 into their infectious period. So that's my experience.
Okay, thank you. Just a question on why we're not tracking travel. I'll be honest, my first answer is it's very, very hard to track and took an extraordinary amount of time, and it is a self-disclosure process. And all of the protocols have lifted. So from the state, CDC and DPH, especially with the vaccines. So we'll be keeping an eye to see if that needs to change, but right now we're not. Masks, the only specific thing on masks is no gaiters. We're sticking with the same asks of last year in terms of types of masks. Quarantine requirement if someone in the house is positive, if the student is vaccinated and someone in the house is positive, quarantine requirement, Trish?
They can come to school.
Right, so
And
vaccinated, no quarantine. We would recommend some testing, but we won't be mandating it. Middle school, just a little bit on the teachers. They are voluntarily all going to get vaccinated. It is a HEPA restriction. You may not ask them. Part of why they've agreed to all get vaccinated is so it's not a worry for you and you won't have the need to ask. So please know that's much of a cooperative effort to ensure a safe environment for all kids. Let's see, I'm trying to just not find the duplicates. Oh, the questions keep moving. So I apologize if we missed your question. Please email us or follow up. They move as questions come in and I'm very likely to miss one. Question on the COVID, the quarantine of the entire classroom. And I'll just quickly say, we did have school spread at Alcott last year. And in 2 classrooms, we had, Naomi, 9 or 10 cases between adults and kids, somewhere in there.
I think it was 7, but there was some spread.
There was definitely school transmission. We were able to isolate that by quarantining the whole class. So we're defaulting to that very conservative approach for the start of school. We are going to revisit that as we get in and see if the Delta variant still seems to indicate that. Maybe not. We're hoping not, actually. Let's see here. What is the pool for pool testing? Lisa, can you just define what the pool is?
Yep. Can you hear me? I'm doing it right. Yep. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So we do 10 participants per pool. In the elementary, they're cohorted by classroom, and the middle and high school, they're, I think Justin and I are right that it's random in the middle school. The high school, they're done during the lunch blocks a couple days a week. Each school is going to do it different days. And I think at the middle school, they're going to try to catch kids first thing in the morning when they arrive.
Great.
And teachers, I saw a question earlier also, can we require staff and teachers to pool test? No, we can't, just like we don't the students, but we strongly encourage. And last year we did have a large percentage of staff and faculty participating.
Thank you. Question on close contacts. We were actually talking about that before. There's mixed guidance out there. See if I got it right, Tricia. We're looking at, DESE's actually gone to 3 feet for a definition of close contact. So we are planning on following suit. And so the plan as of today, which we're going to keep revisiting, but is the plan we'll start with, within 3 feet will be identified as a close contact and need to quarantine. Beyond 3 feet up to 6 feet, we're going to notify you and strongly suggest testing. That's in accordance with DESE and DPH guidance.
And while we're on here, I just want to answer one question that I see, just to confirm, vaccinated students don't have to quarantine if they're COVID positive and asymptomatic. A case is a case is a case. If you test positive for COVID, it's a 10-day isolation period. Okay, you are infectious. You got it again. You got it for the first time, whatever. So it's, if you're a close contact, if you're exposed to a positive case and you're vaccinated, you don't need to leave school. You don't need to do the 7-day quarantine period. You should always monitor for symptoms, and really with the Delta variant, it should be a very low threshold. So if your child was exposed, but your child is vaccinated and mom, has a headache and, clearing their throat or his little sniffles, I hear that a lot, get him tested, him or her tested. A case is a case is a case.
Couple questions about outside. We are not any longer required to contact trace outside per protocol. We will not be restricting kids at recess. They can mix together, they can use the equipment. It'll essentially feel like a normal recess. We aren't cohorting grade 6. We hadn't last year. We do go class by class. That's going to stay the same as it was.
Lori, I saw something else about the flu. We are going to try to organize flu clinics again at the high school for anyone that's interested. It's not mandatory, but recommended on a non-COVID year, a non-pandemic. It's always a good thing to get a flu shot. So we're going to see if we can link up with either CVS or Walgreens for that again this year.
Great. Can we just talk on testing at the elementary schools and how that process works? One of the principals want to grab that. I know we're
Angel,
probably changing it.
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to take that one. So at the elementary level, we have a scheduled time where each class, students who have opted in come down to the health office. In grades K and 1, the nurse swabs the students. It's very quick. And in grades 2 to 5, the students self-swab under the supervision of the school nurse. It's very quick. The students really internalize the routine very quickly. And I would say it's a very limited loss of instructional time.
Thank you.
And can I add, I think we were all at about 80% of our student population at the end of last year with their parents opting in. So we were very excited that that was the case.
Great. I'm going to clarify. There's a question here. If you're vaccinated and have COVID symptoms, you're okay to attend school. No, you did hear it wrong. If you're symptomatic, you need to stay home and be tested. And then the outcome of the test will determine return to school or not. Athletes are required to be in the pool testing. That's been communicated to them. Preschoolers can participate. Yes, that is true. And many did. I think we've hit the themes here in terms of information. I see one hand up for live questions. I am going to ask that it be a question and not a statement on opinion of the protocol, but a logistical question if that's something you're asking. Again, we're not going to have a debate over the protocols right now. The school committee and I have heard that, but if you have a logistical question. Jared, could you promote Anthony and we'll ask if that's the case?
Lori, there's some questions maybe for Mike about lockers at the high school.
Sure, why don't you answer that while I move?
Well, so I'm happy to answer questions about lockers that it's really not an issue for us, because what we've discovered is instead of assigning, this is pre-COVID, instead of assigning students lockers and then realizing that nobody uses them, what we have done in the past is students request a locker if they want one. And students were not using lockers very much. We did pre-COVID decide to assign them to all ninth graders, but that no longer is in effect. In terms of the locker room for sports, we feel like we do have a solid plan where some equipment could be stored and we could do it safely with folks chaperoning the facility one way in, one way out, not a long stay in there. In terms of using it during the day for health and fitness, it's unlikely at this point unless we can come up with an ironclad plan. However, chaperoning those areas can be a challenge, or just having an adult in there to move kids along can be a challenge.
Thanks, Mike. Anthony, if you have a question logistically, we're happy to hear it.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Oh, great. I didn't know you were talking to me.
Your show is Anthony. That's all that's all we have to go with.
That's great. I don't really know what question he was talking to because I didn't ask a question about lockers. My son actually had a respiratory infection due to the mask that he was wearing all year, and he had it all summer, which really stunk for the whole family and him. We couldn't have playdates, we couldn't do anything. We were stuck at home all summer, and it was awful for his development. He's in grade 3, and I'm just wondering, are you going to require these masks for elementary school for the whole year when they're not in line to be eligible for vaccines, which who knows if they're safe? It's just unreal. Why? Sorry, I have my other kids with me and they're talking, but it's just not family friendly. It's not safe. And why these kids have to wear these masks and it doesn't protect from viruses. The size of these viruses that could get through the mask, they're way too small if you protect by the fabric size. If you just do your research, you would know that. Compounded by the respiratory, the force that's coming out of, like, you breathe and the force is coming out, it's going to push these viruses through. You need 2 of these virus molecules stuck side by side to be able to push through a hole in the fabric molecule of a mask. And it's just unreal. I'm sorry, I'm just a little bit rambling here, but it's just unreal that they have to wear a mask. And my kids,
I think we heard your point and we appreciate it. And it's just we're running a long night, so I'm gonna wrap us up.
Are you gonna wrap us up or are you gonna answer?
We've said all we're gonna say, and then we've heard both sides of the mask discussion. And we commented on that earlier. So
okay,
thanks.
Great. Let me just sum it up for you. Are the elementary school students likely to wear masks for the whole year or not?
We do not know the answer to that on August 24th. We will continue to revisit that. So thank you.
Yep, sure, great.
All right, I think we've gone through all the Q&A. I see Bob's hand is up. Bob, I'm really going to ask that we not have a mask discussion and we talk on a logistical question. So Jared, will you promote Bob and we'll give him the final comment of the night.
Well, let me get off mute here and I'll show my face.
Hi,
So
Bob.
yeah, thanks for allowing me to speak. Yeah, I do want to stay on the topic that you asked and why I'm asking is because I didn't get a clear sense from listening to all the discussion, nor did I get a sense a week ago. But I'm really directing this at the school board. But I think this body, needs to hear that as a parent, I did not get a clear articulation of what criteria would be used to evaluate or remove the mask mandate, or conversely to make additional controls. And the reason I'm asking is because a week from now, there's going to be a school board meeting, and I don't want to wake up September 1st and not know what was discussed or decided. So that's the reason for my question.
I can weigh in on this, that as the school board, we've decided and we've stated for the past few meetings that we're going to be revisiting all protocols, all practices every 2 weeks. There's nothing that's going to jump out at anybody with tomorrow something. I mean, we're looking at a lot of metrics. I mean, last year when what we first were looking at to figure out what schools would do, we looked at the state level, we looked at the county level, we looked at case numbers, and we learned through the year what was relevant to our community.
I appreciate it's a complicated topic.
It's a complicated topic.
Commit?
It's an evolving source of information.
Understand that. Can you commit to sharing those considerations next time? And I'm just, because I didn't hear that a week ago. I was told to come to this meeting and I was going to get additional information, and I'm just giving you some feedback as parents. I'm not hearing it tonight. So if you don't think, if you think it's too complicated for us to understand, then please tell us that. But I think we have a pretty a pretty sophisticated and very involved community that wants to hear what it is that is leading you to the decisions that you're taking on behalf of our children.
This is not a school committee meeting. There are two of us, the chairs, who are here being panelists with everybody else who's here, talking about all of the protocols that have all of the information that we are processing that has led us to collectively put these protocols and practices in place that Governor Baker asked the school boards and the administrations and the staff at the schools to come to decide, which of course now they said they're actually coming up with their own state guidance. So I think that we've answered everything that we can answer at this point on. Yeah.
Definitely affirmed. I think I'll just offer some closing comments. And I think our goals are all the same, right? We want our kids emotionally and physically safe. All of our goals are the same. All of us want our kids in school. We want them to stay in school. We're all sorting out what information we think matters to accomplish that. And so we're going to ask your patience. We've made a plan to open school. That's the only goal right now. Open school, get the kids in, live this for a little bit, and start to see what reality is with the variables that changed really, really quickly over the summer. We all are in agreement. We want to undo as many of these restrictions as quickly as possible. So we're appreciative of all the feedback tonight and the mixed perspectives. That makes us better. It does make us better. Now we're going to ask for patience as we wade our way through this, get the kids in the door, see what happens, determine how our decisions will be made going forward, and communicate with you throughout all of that. So we're glad for so much participation tonight. That was really important. Some of us are available offline of a meeting like this. School committee meetings are public for you to listen generally. There's some opportunity for public comment, but mostly they're a business meeting, and that's meant to be transparent. They're recorded and posted afterwards, just like this will be. We hope you've seen we've communicated regularly since COVID started. That will continue to be the case. Decisions will not surprise you. And just ask that you let us get the doors open and make decisions as the year progresses here. No decision will be static. That we will certainly all commit to. Everything will get revisited regularly, often, and changed based on the best information that we have, all trying to do best by your kids. That's been the only focus all along since this started, and will certainly remain the focus. So we're glad for so many people here tonight. If we did not answer your question, you've got a lot of choices here on the panel to reach out to, and would ask you to follow up individually if you'd like, and watch for the upcoming school committee meetings and any other ways that we're going to share out information and communicate next steps. So everybody have a good night.